You are listening to the second part of our 12-part series, Healthy Heart, the Wise Woman Way, with Susan Weed at Time Monk Radio. Hello, Susan. Welcome back to Time Monk Radio.
Hi, Gemini. What a delight to be here with you again, continuing our journey into a healthy heart. You know, when I was a little girl in school, I remember a film that we were shown. This was really exciting to us that we got to see films at school. Remember, television was just new. I was talking to my granddaughter. She just went out to see a movie with a character that was in cartoons when I was young. And she said, oh, well, the Wayback Machine was a shiny red. And I said, well, honey, when I saw Peabody on cartoons, the TV was black and white. And she looked at me like, TV was black and white? I said, yeah, the Wayback Machine wasn't any color at all. So we are well beyond black and white, thank goodness. And here we are with lots and lots of red, because we are talking about the heart and all kinds of things that happen with the heart. Last week, we started in on the basics of the heart. What is the heart? And what does it do, and how does it do it? And this week, we're going to add to the heart the circulatory system, because, of course, the heart without the circulatory system would not make much sense now, would it? The circulatory system consists of arteries, veins, and capillaries. The capillaries are where the action is all going on. The capillaries are tiny little blood vessels, and they permeate every tissue of the body and bring oxygen and nutrition to each and every cell. The larger blood vessels, the ones that you see, the ones you relate to, are the arteries and the veins. The arteries and the veins have different modes because they do somewhat different things. The arteries carry the blood from the heart out to the capillaries, and then the veins bring the blood back from the capillaries back to the lungs and the heart. The arteries carry oxygen-rich blood pumped out by the heart. They are muscular and flexible when they are healthy. The blood that we see in an artery is bright red, and it spurts out under pressure if that artery is cut. Because of this, the arteries are generally held deep in the body or deep in a limb, much deeper than the veins are, for protection. And that's because we could actually bleed to death pretty easily if an artery is severed. We must use deep pressure or a tourniquet to stop bleeding from a cut artery, or we could literally bleed to death. The veins have gates rather than muscles. So we think about it. The heart fills up with blood, and it pumps. And it pumps that blood out into the arteries. And the arteries, which are muscular, are able to carry that pump impulse, that ka-da-da, from the heart all the way down to the capillary bed, and then through the capillary bed and push it up into the veins. But the veins are not muscular. The veins, instead of having muscles and being able to help with pumping of the blood, the veins have little gates, so they're much more passive. And as the blood pumps through the heart and through the arteries into the capillary bed, then it's pushed into the veins, and at that push, the little gates open, and the blood pushes a little bit, and then the gates snap shut and hold the blood there. Now, the blood that's in the veins, when it's inside your body, is blue because there isn't any oxygen in it. Turn over your hand and look at your wrist. That's right. You can see the veins right there, and you can see that they look blue. It's not just in the anatomy books that the arteries are red and the veins are blue. It's really true in your body, too. If you cut a vein, and it's easy to cut a vein because they're closer to the skin surface, then you are going to get red blood as soon as it's exposed to the air. It oxygenates and it's red. But it's a darker red, and there's no pumping to it. The arterial blood is a bright, foamy red with a pump, pump, pump to it, whereas the blood in veins uh, comes out much slower, and it's a darker looking blood. In fact, it's not really possible to die from cutting a vein, and that is why the veins are so close to the surface, because it keeps us safer. If you're thinking of bleeding to death by cutting your wrists, understand that's not going to happen. Those are veins that you see there, and cutting a vein doesn't result in death. The blood vessels are prone to problems, especially as we age. And some of those problems that have to do with the circulatory system and the blood vessels include hardening of the arteries, coronary artery disease, buildup of cholesterol plaque in the blood vessels, inflammation of the blood vessels, and high blood pressure. Herbs and lifestyle changes can counter all of these problems. Indeed, freedom from blood vessel disease may be one of the most important aspects of having a healthy heart and living a long time. We think of the heart as the important part. The heart is muscle and it's the pump, and it pumps the blood, but if it didn't have anywhere to pump the blood to, it wouldn't be that much use at all now, would it? So together, the heart and the blood vessels are called the cardiovascular system. And it is the system of it is the health of the cardiovascular system that we're really looking at here. If the blood vessels are not healthy, then they cause an undue pressure on the heart. The heart has to work much harder to move the blood through unhealthy blood vessels. And so when the blood vessels are unhealthy, it's extremely difficult for the heart to be healthy. It's not really possible to say that the horse is pulling the cart or the cart is pulling the horse. The blood vessels and the heart work together as a team. A problem, inflammation, difficulty in one is going to wind up being a problem in the other as well. And there are 3 areas that I want us to look at in terms of blood vessel health. The first one is something to avoid, and the second 2 are categories of herbs that we can use to improve our blood vessel health. So we want to avoid trans fatty acids. Trans fatty acids are found in processed foods. These are hydrogenated and especially partially hydrogenated fats. Trans fatty acids actually cause hardening of the arteries. They literally penetrate the muscle of the artery and leave behind a sharp shard that sticks into the interior of the blood vessel. So when there are trans fats in circulation in the body, they tend to damage the blood vessels. Now, cholesterol is used by the body as a healing, soothing substance. This is somewhat of a shock to some people who've somehow gotten the idea that cholesterol is bad, 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 and that we don't want it. In fact, cholesterol is good, 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 and we very, very much need it. It is critical for brain development and brain function. It is the starting material for a great many hormones in the body. We need cholesterol, and we probably need cholesterol for good blood vessel health, too. How could we get so confused about what's going on with cholesterol? Let's look at this a little more deeply and see if we can make a little more sense of it. So we have these trans fatty acids, which are damaging the blood vessels and actually causing tears and bumps in the blood vessels. And cholesterol, which is kind of fat, is a slippery substance. So when there's this damage to the blood vessel, cholesterol comes along as a repair. Cholesterol comes along to soothe the area, to help the area heal, and to keep the blood flowing smoothly. There is a growing body of belief and evidence that to blame cholesterol for buildup in the blood vessels and to blame cholesterol for heart attack is rather like blaming the firefighters for the fires. It's certainly true that when there's a fire, there's going to be firefighters there. And it's certainly true that when there's damage to the blood vessels, cholesterol is going to come and help out. But if we got rid of firefighters, we wouldn't improve the situation and have less fires. And just so, in terms of getting rid of cholesterol, we don't necessarily improve blood vessel health or get rid of our problems. Obviously, there is a lot to say about cholesterol, and that's why later on, as we work through our material here on the heart, we are going to be talking at length about cholesterol, where it comes from, how it's used, what about cholesterol-lowering drugs, a lot of questions that we have to answer about cholesterol. But for now, what we're going to say is that cholesterol is coming to the rescue. When the blood vessels are damaged, cholesterol comes to the rescue and tries to make things better by healing the area. However, that injury causes a scar. And if you think about it, or you have any scars anywhere on your body, you know that the scar tissue is not as flexible as the other tissues. Scar tissue's done a great job. It's healed the wound. You don't have an open wound, but you have a little place where the tissue doesn't flex as well. If we continue to eat commercial processed foods containing trans fatty acids and we continue to injure the blood vessels, cholesterol continues to build up to try to repair them, and we get more and more scar tissue. And that scar tissue limits the flexibility of the arteries. Eventually, it makes the arteries stiff, and that stiffening of the arteries raises blood pressure. And when blood pressure goes up, then the heart has to work even harder. And that extra push from the heart increases the turbulence of the blood flow, encouraging more cholesterol to come and try to smooth the way. So we can see that trans fatty acids are not just bad at the time we eat them or at the time we digest them, but they lead to a whole cascade of events that causes damage over and over again to the blood vessels and then to the heart. Your homework for this week, if you'd like some homework, is to start looking at the food that you eat. Where are these trans fatty acids? They're in processed food, and unfortunately, they're in restaurant food. I did some government work looking at people's dietary patterns in the late 70s. And one aspect of my job was to do a kind of interview questionnaire with several hundred people in my community. And the average number of times that people ate out in the late 70s was approximately once a week. Nowadays, if I were to do that same study, and many other people besides me have done it, what we are finding is that an enormous number of people are eating almost all of their meals away from home. It's not unusual to have people answer that they eat out 20 times a week. Virtually all of that food is containing trans fatty acids as well as the processed foods. Start to make this change in your lifestyle, and it will reap enormous benefits for your heart. Now, let's look at those two categories of herbs that I said are so important for blood vessel health. The first category is astringent herbs, and the second one is vascular tonics. Astringents, as one of my teachers said, teach the cells how to exercise. An astringent, of course, contracts tissue, but then the tissue relaxes. So the astringent is rather like a coach. It says, constrict, relax, relax. So it's just like exercise. Doop, 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 doop. So there are hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of astringent herbs. And what I've done is I've gone through these, and I have hand-picked the ones that are going to be the best for the heart and the blood vessels, because astringents are used throughout the body to tone up the skin, to tone up a wide variety of tissues. So we want to look at blood vessel health and heart health here with our astringents. Here's my short list of astringent herbs that you might want to consider. Comfrey leaf infusion, cronewort leaf and flower tincture. Cronewort is often called mugwort. Grape leaf tea, ground ivy tincture or tea, hibiscus flower tea, motherwort herb tincture, nettle leaf infusion, plantain leaf tea or tincture, rose petal tea or rose petal honey, rosemary tea or vinegar, and willow bark tincture. I obviously would not use all of these at once, but if I had a problem with my blood vessels, I would probably choose one or two of these astringent herbs to use on a regular basis to help me increase the tone of my blood vessels and my cardiovascular system as a whole. Vascular tonics are herbs which actually nourish the tissues of the blood vessels. So the astringent herbs say, let's exercise, and then the vascular tonics say, well, yes, and wouldn't you like something to eat as well? This is, to my mind, one of the greatest gifts of the wise woman tradition, is that it keeps turning us toward the idea that what we want to look at is nourishment. We don't want to measure and fix. We don't want to cleanse and balance. We want to nourish. And by nourishing the blood vessels and nourishing the heart, we wind up with a healthy cardiovascular system. I have picked 6 vascular tonics, which are my favorite vascular tonics, and those include ginkgo, hawthorn, kelp, linden, pomegranate, and yarrow. Ginkgo dates back to the Paleozoic period, more than 225 million years ago. It is the oldest living tree on the planet today. No, we're not talking about an individual tree that's 225 million years old, but we're talking about the fact that ginkgo has basically been unchanged for all of that time. What does this ancient tree have to tell us about modern-day hearts? Well, ginkgo leaves have been used as a heart tonic for at least 600 years in China. Ginkgo has become a very, very popular herb. It's a very easy tincture to make because it's made from the leaves of the tree when they fall off in the autumn, so almost anybody can make it. And so it has actually gotten a fair amount of scientific investigation looking into it. The most recent studies fail to find that people who take ginkgo have less stroke or less heart attack, and fail to find that ginkgo can prevent or reduce dementia. And so you may have seen the headlines that says, ginkgo is a wash-up. Ginkgo does nothing. Not true. Ginkgo has a real expertise, and it's an expertise for a very major problem, which is peripheral vascular disease, which is also known as intermittent claudication or poor circulation in the legs. This becomes a real problem in people with blood sugar problems, people with diabetes. The blood does not flow well, does not circulate well in the legs, and ginkgo is a specific for this. The most common symptoms of peripheral vascular disease are cold feet and pain in the legs when walking. Left untreated, peripheral vascular disease leads to amputation or major surgical bypass procedures in the lower legs. In one study done with ginkgo, it was twice as effective as a placebo in relieving the symptoms and the actual problem itself in the leg. So it not only relieved people's pain, but it actually went a long way toward restoring the flexibility and health of those blood vessels. We also find that Ginkgo tincture can increase the blood flow to the head. Increases the blood supply. It was very, very helpful for anyone who's dealing with Parkinson's disease and focal or diffuse cerebral vascular disease. David Hoffman was able to find a study which showed an 80% success rate in treating cerebral circulatory insufficiency, including chronic vertigo, chronic headaches, and so on, and that it is especially useful to counter complications in the brain following a stroke. Not only that, Ginkgo has been found to ease blood vessel spasms in the elderly and in those with arteriosclerosis. It can lower high blood pressure, and it can ease anxiety and stabilize irregular heartbeat. Ginkgo would not be my first choice for most people in terms of a cardiovascular tonic. But if we have anybody who has these particular circulatory issues, difficulty of circulation in the lower limbs, or somehow the circulation is not good to the brain, Ginkgo would be my very first choice for that. Hawthorn is my first choice for everybody. I love hawthorn, and in fact, I have so much to say about hawthorn as a cardiovascular tonic that we're going to have to come back at another show and talk about hawthorn. Kelp is the essence of the ocean, and the heart, of course, beats like the ocean. The connection between heart health and kelp is a mighty connection, and we talked at some length about kelp in our last show, and this will not be the last time you hear me talking about kelp. It contains proteins and lipids that are exceptionally healthy for the heart and the blood vessels, and a review of over 100 research studies published in 2011 found that seaweed was one of the best sources of heart-healthy essential fatty acids, and regular consumption was linked to reduced risk of arteriosclerosis and thrombosis. Not only that, regular use of seaweed has been shown to lower blood pressure. Linden is one of my favorite anti-inflammatory herbs. It is so soothing and so safe. It opens blood vessels promptly and lowers C-reactive protein quickly. Linden, like hawthorn, is an herb that I use so much and value so much that we're going to come back in a later show, and we're going to look a lot more at linden and get an idea of what linden can do very specifically for us, because there's lots and lots that I want to say about linden. Pomegranate juice. We talked a little bit about pomegranate juice on our very last show, and you know that I'm a big pomegranate juice fan, and so check out that previous show if you want to know more about pomegranate. And yarrow, a truly special heart tonic when taken as a cold tea. We are actually running out of time here this week, and so at a later show I will talk to you more about yarrow. A daily use of as little as 2 ounces of pomegranate juice a day reduce systolic blood pressure in 2 weeks. That's a lot faster than the drugs can do it. This is Susan Weed here with you at Time Monk Radio, looking into having a healthy heart the wise woman way. And I hope you come and visit me at SusanWeed.com. You can also check out my mentorship site, and that's WiseWomanMentor.com, or go to the WiseWomanBookshop.com. There you'll find all 5 of my books and my new offering at my Wise Woman University, A Healthy Heart the Wise Woman Way. I have so much enjoyed being with you here tonight, Gemini, and looking at all of the different herbs and foods and lifestyle changes that we can use to have a healthy heart. It's obvious that having a healthy heart is critical for overall health, but even I was surprised at the enormous interest that people are showing. I think the message is finally getting through that the health that we experience has a lot to do with the choices that we make on a day-by-day basis. I'm glad that you chose to come to Time Monk Radio and to hang out with me. We'll be back next week for week 3, a healthy heart muscle. Dream blessings.
Thank you, Susan. Thank you. This concludes the second part of our 12-part series, Healthy Heart, the Wise Woman Way with Susan Weed at Time Monk Radio.